This is the fastest way to level up in the game, and this is how you max out your Blox fruit overnight. These are 10 of the craziest tricks that pros abuse that you don't. So first up is the Buddha farming technique, and this technique is the best in the whole game if you want to level up as fast as possible. So the way you do this trick is you just need a Buddha fruit. You don't even need to upgrade it, you don't need to master it at all. What you want to use this fruit is for its size. So when you transform using your Buddha, basically what it does, it increases the range that you can hit your enemies. So it lets you damage your enemies, but they can't damage you back. Usually it's best to use this fruit with a combat style, but you can also use it with swords depending on what level you are in the game. And the best fighting style to use with this is probably God Human or Superhuman. If you're still in the first sea, then you probably want to use Water Kung Fu. Some other perks about this is that even when enemies do hit you, you take 50% less damage because of how the Buddha works. Man, I wish someone told me this trick when I was still level 200. While we're still on the topic of the Buddha fruit, I'm going to tell you how to always win your raids. So obviously you're going to have to equip the Buddha fruit, and you want to choose a light raid. And once you get to the Awakened Light boss in the pyramid, all you have to do is stand behind the wall exactly like this, and the overpowered reach of the Buddha just lets you hit the boss without the boss being able to hit you. So you can just stand behind this wall and just maybe leave on an auto click or just spam left click till you drain away at its health. Another tip is if you want to reduce just a bit of a time on your raid, make sure you dash to your next islands instead of getting in the boat and driving to them. For this next trick, I bet it's something that you definitely did not know. Auto clickers and macros are allowed in Blox fruits. It even says so in the game's description. What this does is it makes it 10 times easier to do things like aura farming, observation farming, and even devil fruit farming. So if you want to aura farm, what you do is you just stand on the spawn point of the user, activate your aura, and just leave an auto clicker on. And if you have an elemental type fruit, they just can't hit you, but you can hit them, which upgrades your aura. If you want to farm your devil fruit, all you have to do is get a macro that just repeats the same key of one of your devil fruit abilities. And you can leave these macros and auto clickers overnight to just instantly farm up to a really high level. Now this trick shows you a way to complete your quests a lot faster. You know when you're in a boss quest and you just have to wait for the boss to respawn and it takes forever? You can use this little trick called server hopping. Basically you just look at the top left of your screen, you click on servers, and then you just simply join a new server. And there's a good chance that in that new server the boss you need to kill is still alive. So you can use this method as many times as you want. This lets you get more XP and lets you finish your quests much faster. While we're on the theme of server hopping, here's another trick to let you farm money really fast. So what you do is you go to the upper Skylands and you make your way over to this big tower, and then you walk through this exact entrance, and then you either no clip or break it using an ability. And then there should be a bunch of chests here, which gives you around $7,000, and then you can just server hop and do the exact same thing again. And you can do this as many times as you like, and there's a pretty low chance that these chests will be taken because not many players in the game know this spot. Another way you could AFK farm money is using the auto clicking trick from before. When you're playing Blox fruits, you frequently have to travel to different islands, and well, the fastest way to do it is simply using the light fruit. The light fruit has the fastest method of travel in the whole game. I know some of you might say that the enforcer boat is a bit faster, but if you count the time that it takes for a player to spawn in the boat, the light fruit definitely beats it. Another thing about the light fruit that you can't do with a boat is fly in the sky. For example, if you wanted to fly up the Skylands, you can't really fly with a boat, can you? You have to do it using the light fruit. This next one is just a pretty weird glitch, and you can use it to find some really cool Easter eggs in the game. I'm obviously talking about no clipping. So the way to no clip is you have to have shift lock turned on. Then you walk up to a wall, and then you just have to angle your camera in a really weird way. It's different for each wall, and then you use your flash step. And if you do all of these steps correctly, it should teleport you through the wall. And once you're underneath places, you can see some pretty weird things that the developers definitely did not want you to see. This next one is for people that aren't playing on the best of devices. Well, all you have to do is turn on fast mode. Fast mode makes your game lag way less, and even people with good PCs use this sometimes. You can use it for things like lighting up really dark spaces, like on this ship quest, like man, it was really dark. But if you turn on fast mode, it makes the place much brighter. Here's a before and after. This next one lets you kill bosses that are much higher level than you. So using this fishman boss as an example, you can kind of trap him behind a pillar like this, and if you turn on your observation Haki, you can see exactly where he is. And using the right kind of sword, combat style, or any type of ability, you can hit him through the wall. And once he gets launched back or gets pushed away, you can just readjust yourself so he's still trapped, and you just keep repeating this till the boss is dead. This next one is more for PvP than it actually is for grinding. So if you go into your settings on the left here and then you turn on damage counter, what this does is it lets you see exactly how much damage you do to someone. So when you hit a character 5 times, it shows you the overall combo damage that you've done. This can help you with many things like testing how much damage each of your ability does and how to fight much better in PvP. When you're PvPing someone and you hit them and you see that you've done a lot of damage but their health is barely gone down, then maybe it's a fight that you shouldn't be taking. Did you know that this farming method literally lets you get 5 million belly per hour? These are 10 of the craziest money making methods in all of Blox fruits. Okay, so first of all we got sea beast hunting. And for this what you want to do is you just want to take a ship, preferably one with a lot of health, and drive it somewhere into the middle of the ocean, far away from islands. Now you just have to AFK for a bit and wait for the sea beast to spawn. And once that happens, you want to use every single ability, combat style, sword, and gun equipped. And this is because you want to do the maximum amount of damage to the sea beast in the short amount of time as possible. And once you finished off the sea beast, you should get around 1.5 million belly per sea beast. And if you keep hunting down more and more sea beasts, they should give you more and more money. And if you get 4 sea beasts, that's literally enough to buy a leopard fruit. So the next way to farm money is bounty hunting. So all you have to do is find a wanted poster of somebody that you want to hunt, and you just click on the poster. Then you probably want to have some PvP based fruits, probably like the awakened doe fruit or the leopard fruit. Then you want to find the player that you're hunting and just simply kill them. But remember, this depends on how huge that player's bounty was. And the max bounties that pirates can have in the game is 30 million. So that is a lot of money. Okay, so next up we have raids. Raids are how you awaken your fruits, but you also get a huge amount of money on the side. And the best thing about raids is that you can trade in like the worst fruits in the games to start one, or you can buy them every 2 hours. Overall, depending on how difficult your raid is, it gives you a different amount of money, so it's best to choose one that's more for your skill level. When doing a raid, you should always be using the Buddha fruit. It makes raids extremely easy to complete compared to other fruits. As long as you have bad fruits to trade in, the money potential is endless. This trick's really simple to use. I'm obviously talking about codes. All you have to do is simply search up a website of Blox fruits codes and just enter every single one that you find. Since most of these codes are double XP, you just have to farm, which gives you tougher opponents, which gives you more money. So this next trick is AFK farming. So the way you do this is you simply stand on the spawn point of the enemy and you just stand still, equip the sword or a combat style, and just leave an auto clicker on. And since you're on the spawn point of the enemy, when they respawn, they directly start trying to hit you, but they can't hit you, but you can hit them. So if you leave this on overnight, you should get a huge amount of money when you wake up. This next way is more for new players that don't have the advanced fighting style or combat style required for the other methods. What you do is you just simply walk around the map and collect every single chest that you see. And as soon as you're done farming all the chests, you can just simply server hop and repeat it. A place I do recommend for this is Upper Skylands, so if you break into the pyramid using this entrance, there's a good amount of chests here that give you approximately 7,000 belly. But keep in mind that this is better for only new players to use, and if you're a more experienced player, you should consider following the other tricks. So this next trick is one that I'm pretty sure most of you are already familiar with. I'm talking about server hopping bosses. You know when you're on that one quest and you just have to keep waiting for the boss to respawn, all you have to do is simply server hop. So the way this works is you just click the servers button on the top left and you choose any server that isn't the one that you're in. And once you load into that server, the boss you're looking for should still be there. And this is the best way to maximize the money output from the quests that you do, since obviously the boss quest gives you more than the other quests. So this next trick is for people that have a bit of spare Robux and you don't know what to spend it on. If you want to maximize your money output, obviously the game pass that you want to buy is double money. It pretty much does what it says. It literally gives you double the money you earn from anything that you do. If you get a lot of money, you can spend that money on weapons and combat styles, which in turn helps you get even more money, and it's just a never-ending cycle of money. This next one is one that's gonna help you a lot when it comes to grinding money. So what you're gonna have to do is buy a private server. I know what you're thinking, most of you don't have the Robux to spend on that, but I have a really simple solution for you guys. So if you go onto YouTube and just search up Roblox Blox Fruits private server, you should find a bunch of videos that just have private server links. And basically when you you go into these servers, there should be way less people than there are in a normal server. And what this helps you with is that you can do your own quest piece-free without anybody else doing the same quest as you. And this one is one that I'm pretty sure all of you watching are already familiar with. I'm talking about Buddha farming. The Buddha farming method is probably the most generic and one of the best ways to make money in this game. All you have to do is somehow get your hands on the Buddha fruit. You don't need to upgrade it. The only thing that you're using the Buddha for is its transformation. And the reason for this is it lets you hit enemies from a really far distance. And this makes it so the enemies can't hit you, but you can hit them. And this would give you a lot of money. It also lets you level up a lot faster, which in turn gives you more money. Okay, so another way to farm fragments is by collecting fragment chests. You might be asking yourself, wait, what? There's fragment chests in the game. So the way you get fragments chests is on the Mirage Island. And each fragment chest gives you 100 to 200 fragments. Well, you might be asking yourself, what is the Mirage Island? I've never heard of that. So the Mirage Island is a sea event that occurs at random times. But the requirements for this is for you to simply be on a boat, sailing far away from any island. Then there's a pretty low chance that the Mirage Island just spawns in. Once you get on the island, you have to get those fragment chests very fast because the island despawns in exactly 15 minutes. And this sea event can only happen in the 3rd sea, so if you're low level, well, too bad for you. Is one of the most popular methods in the game. I'm talking about fruit raids because you get 1,000 fragments each raid. And as long as you have terrible fruits to trade in to the scientist, you can basically do unlimited raids. When you choose a raid, you obviously want to choose the flame raid because the flame raid is the easiest raid to complete in the game. And keep in mind, the faster you do finish your raid, the more fragments that you get. And also, last thing, make sure you are using the Buddha fruit when you do them. Okay, so this next way to get fragments is a bit randomized. And the way to do this is using the Death King. Basically, when you walk up to the Death King NPC, who is located at the Haunted Castle, you can trade in bones to get random surprises. And one of the surprises that the Death King gives you is fragments. And it is one of his more common rewards, so you have a much higher chance of getting fragments than anything else. The Death King gives you around 100 to 300 fragments on each roll, and it costs 50 bones to do one roll. And keep in mind that you can only use the Death King 10 times every 2 hours. So this is one that most of you definitely do not know. Have you ever seen a player walking around with a YouTuber title? Well, what if I told you that if you kill that person, you would get 2,500 fragments? I mean, the downside of this is that you don't find many people with the YouTuber title, but if you do, you know how to get yourself some quick fragments. Sea beast hunting is a pretty good way to get fragments. So basically, all you do is you just drive your boat into the middle of the ocean and just wait for it to spawn, which could take a huge amount of time. And since it's not the only sea event that can occur, that puts a bit of a randomizer on this. But if a sea beast does spawn, make sure you kill it really fast before it kills you because the sea beasts are really overpowered. And once you kill them, you get 250 fragments. But you also do get 1.5 million belly, which is a really good method for grinding cash. Okay, so this one is for you rich people out there. All you have to do is simply open up your shop and just buy the most expensive amount of fragments that you can get your hands on. But overall, this is not that good of a way to do it because I doubt many of you have millions of spare Robux just sitting around. Okay, so this way to farm fragments is with the Cake Prince raid. You need to kill 500 NPCs on the Cake Island and talk to Drip Mama. A portal opens to the Dough World where you can kill the Cake Prince. And every single time you kill him, you get a whopping 1,000 fragments. But if you do get the Chalice, you can awaken him into the Dough King, and that's the way you can awaken your Dough Fruit. But the fragments are also a pretty good drop-off to it. So another pretty useful way to get fragments is by killing these two NPCs, Darkbeard and Rip Indra. But you probably want to be going for Darkbeard because Rip Indra is the final boss of the game and he's level 5,000, which makes him much harder to kill. But both of them do drop 1,500 fragments when you kill them. And keep in mind that Darkbeard is only a level 1,000 raid boss, which makes Rip Indra 5 times harder to kill. Okay, so moving on, we have winter events. And during winter events, you could actually find an NPC called the Greedy Elf, who could be found through various locations throughout every single sea. And once you find this guy, you just simply have to walk up to him, talk to him, and then you can trade in candies that you get for fragments. 50 candies would equal to 300 fragments, and 100 candies would equal to 700. And the way you get candies is by killing NPCs around your level. One downside to this is that it's obviously only during winter events, and you can't find the NPC at any other time. Okay, so this way to farm fragments is ship raids. Ship raids are a random sea event that happens when you're just driving with your boat. And if you destroy every ship on the raid, it all gives you a total of 200 fragments. But another bonus from this is that you do sometimes get a random fruit. I'm gonna be showing you guys the 10 best fruits in all of Blox fruits. And in number 10, we have the Phoenix fruit. The Phoenix fruit is a beast type Blox fruit. It costs $1,800,000 or 2,000 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. This fruit needs 18,500 fragments to fully awaken, which is the second most expensive fruits to awaken in the whole game. Despite being fairly expensive, some people think that it has little to no grinding potential. However, the unawakened version has and can be considered one of the best fruits in the game, but the awakened version is 100 times better. The love fruit is a natural type Blox fruit. It costs $700,000 or 1,150 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. It is used by the Island Empress boss. This fruit has an 8% chance of being in stock and a 7.75% chance of spawning in game. This fruit is one of the 13 fruits in the game that glows in their physical form. And in number 8, we have the magma fruit. The magma fruit is an elemental type and it costs $850,000 or 1,300 Robux. This fruit is the best fruit for the first seed due to its water walking passive ability and the insane damage over time that it has. It doesn't require much mastery, thus allowing first seed players to use this amazing fruit. In number 7, we have the dark fruit. This fruit is an elemental type Blox fruit and it costs 500,000 or 950 Robux to buy from the Blox fruit dealer. The dark fruit is used by an NPC called Darkbeard. It is considered as one of the best fruits in the game when fighting other players. It is recommended to use this fruit with a sword or a gun because most of its abilities have a long stun duration for the other player. And in number 6, we have the human Buddha fruit. The human Buddha fruit is obviously a beast type fruit because of its insanely huge transformation. It has only a 5% chance of being in stock and has a 6.6% chance of spawning every hour. And to fully awaken this fruit, you need 14,500 fragments. When you transform into a giant Buddha, you grow to nearly 7 times the size of a normal character. It also reduces overall damage by 40%. When transformed, the user gains extreme hitboxes up to 800% the normal hitbox. But the downside is obviously the user themselves also become a much easier target. Okay, in number 5, we have the dragon fruit. Dragon is a beast type Blox fruit that costs $3,500,000 or 2,600 Robux. The fruit has only a 1% chance of being in stock, and this fruit has the hugest transform model in the game. And when I say huge, I mean huge. Like, this dragon is humongous. It's bigger than the human Buddha fruit, the phoenix fruit, and the leopard fruit. This is the first beast fruit to be added to game that is a mythical tier fruit. Sadly, this fruit has no awakening, but it would have been really cool to see an ultra super powered dragon. And one pretty cool thing about this fruit is that you don't have to be in transformation to use your abilities, unlike some other fruits. And at number 4, we have the venom fruit. This fruit is a natural Blox fruit and it costs $3 million or 2,450 Robux. This fruit has a 1.2% chance to be in stock and a 1.02% chance of spawning in game each hour. Venom is also constantly being compared with other high tier fruits such as Doe, Leopard, Dragon, Shadow, and Spirit. Unlike the light fruit, you can fully control the venom's flight with your cursor. This fruit is also considered as one of the most powerful fruits in the game due to its passive abilities and overall damage, and its ease to use. The soul fruit is a natural type Blox fruit. It costs a whopping amount of $3,400,000 or 2,550 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. This fruit has only a 1% chance of being in stock and a 0.76% chance of spawning in game. And there's nothing much else to be said about the fruit. I mean, it is a mythical fruit and it is pretty amazing. I know this might be a bit controversial, but in second place we have the leopard fruit. Well, why you may ask? It's because the fruit in number 1 is so much better in so many ways. It costs $5 million to unlock or 3,000 Robux. And this fruit is currently the most expensive fruit in all of Blox fruits, and it only has a 0.4 chance of being in stock. And this fruit is kinda special because it's 1 out of 5 of the beast type fruits to be added to this game. When you turn into this fruit, what it does is increases the user's walk speed by roughly 2 times. And number 1 on the list, we have dough. Dough is an elemental type Blox fruit that costs $2,800,000 or 2,400 Robux. The chances of dough being in stock is a measly 1.4%, and to fully awaken the dough fruit, you need 18,500 fragments, unlocked by defeating the Dough King in the mirror world and using the red key to unlock the door to the cake scientist. This fruit is one of the most valued fruits in the trading community, getting its value from its abilities in PvP and the fact that it's currently the only mythical fruit in the game that has an awakening. This is how you complete all your quests without taking any damage, and this is a way to reach max money as a noob. This is a complete Blox fruits guide to help you become the best player. The most important thing about Blox fruits. Once you have a Blox fruit equipped, you completely lose your ability to swim. So if you step foot in water, you will instantly start taking huge amounts of damage. If you have one fruit equipped and you eat a different fruit, you completely lose the abilities of the fruit you originally had. This is because you can't have 2 fruits at the same time in the game. Unless obviously you bought your fruit with Robux, in that case you can permanently have it. And even if you eat a different fruit, you can go back to the Blox fruits dealer and just equip your fruit again. And for whatever reason, if you decide you don't like fruits anymore and you don't want to have one, you can make your way over to this prison, and if you go to the back of it, there should be this guy, and if you pay him a certain amount of belly, he completely removes the abilities of your Blox fruit. I don't know why anyone would ever want to do this, but you do you, I guess. And this is the more technical side of Blox fruit, so I'm going to be talking about fruit stocks. So you're going to notice that there's 2 major fruit NPCs when it comes to this game: the Blox fruit dealer and the Blox fruit gacha. The Blox fruit gacha is an NPC that gives you a random physical version of a fruit when you talk to him. Obviously, the downside of this that it's random, and you're probably not going to get a good fruit, but you should always roll a fruit if you have a chance, because you can only do it every 2 hours, and the cost for this is determined by the player's level. And for the Blox fruit dealer, he basically just sells you the abilities of every single fruit in the game, but keep in mind that it's only the abilities and not the physical form of the fruit. And if you go to this website, it's going to show you the chance that each fruit can be in stock, but in my opinion, the fruits that you definitely want to keep your eye on are the leopard, dough, and Buddha. Now I'm going to talk about mastery, and mastery is something that you're going to notice as soon as you start playing the game. It's on every single form of damage: combat styles, swords, guns, and Blox fruits. If you look at the abilities on any of your weapons, you'll notice that some of them have a mastery requirement, and that's one of the things that mastery helps you with. The higher your mastery, higher your damage is. So mastery basically also lets you increase the amount of damage you do. Another thing that I must tell you guys is do not get your mastery confused with your main level. Those are completely different things. And obviously your mastery on each weapon is going to be different. For example, if I have a high mastery on this sword and then I use this other sword, it's not going to have the same amount of mastery. And also the mastery that you get on something stays permanently even if you switch out of it. So for example, if I eat this smoke fruit and I get the mastery up to this amount, then I eat a different fruit, but then I decide I don't like this fruit and I switch back to the smoke fruit again, I keep the same amount of mastery that I had. So that's something that's pretty helpful. So I'm going to be telling you about melee. Melee is a stat that you upgrade, which also increases your energy level and the amount of damage you do with your combat style. It's a very important stat because it basically covers 2 at once, and melee is the most important stat in the game, and this is what you always want to focus on upgrading. When you buy really insane fighting styles later on, it's going to help a ton. Okay, so this is something about stats. I'm going to be telling you guys what every single stat does. So melee, what it does is it increases the damage for your fighting styles and also increases the amount of energy that you have. Your defense stat just gives you more health, and the sword stat just increases the damage for any sword that you use, no matter what level its mastery is. And the gun stat just does the same for guns. It increases the damage of your guns, but you don't want to use this, trust me. And Blox fruit, exactly the same. It just upgrades the damage for your Blox fruit. So this way is a pretty easy way to earn a huge amount of money really quickly if you're a beginner. All you have to do is make your way over to the Pirate Flag Island, and then you have to go collect every single chest on this island, and then you just simply server hop. And if you keep doing this over and over, the amount of money that you get will help you a lot. And this is really good for beginners because you just simply have to walk around and collect some chests. Easy peasy. Okay, so now this is a fruit that you definitely want to keep your eye on. I'm talking about the smoke fruit, and this fruit is really good for new players. And the reason for this is that it's the lowest level elemental type fruit in the game. So using the chest grinding method, this should be pretty easy to get. And it also has a 25% stock chance, so you're only gonna have to wait 1 day to get it. And the reason this fruit is so good is because when you unlock the flying ability, it basically just gives you infinite flight and you'll be pouring out a ton of damage. So you can just fly over your enemies and just keep spamming damage on them, and they just just won't be able to hit you at all. And if you can't afford this fruit, some pretty easy ways to get it is if you see any high level player in your game, you can simply just beg for the fruit, and there's a good chance that they'll give it to you. But you have to be in the second sea for this, so it's probably not that good of a choice. So you probably just want to stick to buying it with money. Okay, so you're gonna notice this green compass on the left side of your screen, and this compass is gonna be your best friend throughout your whole Blox routes journey. It tells you the next NPC that you have to find for your quest. Once you click on your compass and then you click on this button, it's just gonna start directing you to the nearest quest giver. And you always want to keep an eye out for this because that's the best place that you're gonna want to go to grind your levels. Okay, so this is something that you definitely want to keep your eye on. Every player in Blox routes that's below the level of 20 will not take any damage from other players. And this is something that's really good for new players because you just can't get harassed by some overpowered player with a 30 million bounty. Keep in mind, once you pass level 20, you will start taking damage from other players even if they're max levels. But as long as you're under 20, you can just keep enjoying your time in the game. And this is something that's really easy for new players to do. All you have to do is go on Google and just search up Blox fruits codes and then enter this website, and then it's going to show you every single active code available that you can enter on Blox fruits. And the place that you enter the codes is on the left side of the screen. You just click the Twitter button and there you go. Okay, so this is a fighting style you definitely want to save up for if you're a new player. I'm talking about Water Kung Fu. Water Kung Fu is the best fighting style for leveling up in the whole game. Well, at least in the first sea. Later on, you can upgrade it to a thing called Sharkman Karate, but I won't be talking about that. If you make your way down over to Fishman Island and you walk behind this secret hidden wall, you can find the NPC that sells it to you for 750,000 belly. And it has some really good abilities as well. The Z ability is my personal favorite because it's really good for dishing out damage, and it's also a pretty good ability for movement. There are also other combat styles, but this is definitely the one you want to keep your eye on. And this is a mistake that a lot of beginners make: upgrading your gun stat or even buying guns. I'm going to tell you guys right now, guns are one of the most useless things in the whole of Blox fruits. And the reason for this is that there are many better options. You always want to keep your eye on fighting styles, swords, and fruits. You never want to focus on guns. I know some of you might be saying guns are pretty cool and some of the abilities are interesting, but it definitely does not help you grind. There's just tons of better options, and you definitely don't want to waste your money or time trying to level up or get a gun. So this is a feature that's in the game and a lot of you already noticed, but you want to constantly keep using it. It's called dashing, and you want to use this everywhere you go because it saves a lot of time and takes you to your destination much faster. It also kind of lets you go over water, and this is really useful, especially if you have a Blox fruit equipped in, or else you just die. Basically, what happens when you dash above water is that it prevents you from falling really fast, and you can kind of just travel really long distances with it. And you can also use this for fighting NPCs. For example, if you're using a sword or a combat style, you can quickly hit an NPC and dash away before they hit you. And if you have your defense stat really low, this is going to help you a ton. And later on, when you get accessories and different races and upgrade your movement speed, it also upgrades your dashing. And this is something that helps you a ton in PvP as well. Like if you're fighting other players, you want to be as unpredictable as possible. So you want to just try your best to dash all over the place. But overall, it's just a really good ability and you want to keep using it. And this is a mistake that even I made when I started off playing the game, and it's really important that you don't do the same. Basically, when you have your quests equipped and you're just killing your NPCs, you don't notice it much, but you get a huge amount of XP from your quests. And that's the main way that you level up in the game. It's not from actually killing the NPCs, it's completing the quest. So if you take a quest like this, you can see the huge amount of money that it gives you, but NPCs only give you this small amount. So make sure you always equip your quests and you're not just killing NPCs for no reason. Okay, so now I'm going to be telling you guys about something a lot of new players will definitely not notice. I'm talking about races. So you have a 50% chance of being spawned in as a human, and the other races in the game are Sky Person, Mink, Cyborg, Fishman, and Ghoul. And once you get a higher level in the game, you can change your race, but it does cost a huge amount. Or if you're in the first sea, you could just spend a bunch of Robux and change your race. But keep in mind that changing your race is random, so there's no guarantee that you can get the race that you want, and you could end up losing a lot of Robux. Once you get into later stages in the game, you can upgrade your race and awaken them, and this gives your race a huge amount of really insane and cool abilities. Okay, so now I'm talking about something about quests that's really important, and make sure you do not make this mistake. So every now and then, you're going to encounter a quest that has a boss, and once you finish killing the boss, you're going to notice that it takes a huge amount of time for it to respawn, and in this time, you definitely do not want to just be waiting for the boss to respawn. You want to start repeating the same quest that you're doing farming, even if it's not the highest level of quest that you should be doing. And this is because the boss takes 20 whole minutes to respawn, so you just want to focus on the other quest, because that way at least you keep leveling up and you're not just wasting 20 minutes for no reason. So this is something that you definitely want to keep your eye on for. It's NPC sellers. These are people that just sell you different things like swords, accessories, or combat styles. So as far as fighting styles go, this is where you find the electric person just on this random island outside Skylands. And then for dark step, you can find it in the pirate village in between these houses. And for water kung fu, you can go into Fishman Island and it's right here behind this wall. But there's also a bunch of NPCs in the game hidden in really secretive places. For example, this guy in Marine Fortress, did you know you could walk into this tower and if you go down this ladder, there's a guy that sells you something here.
Nice.
And there's loads more, so make sure every island that you're on, you carefully search the place because you don't want to miss anything. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about farming belly. Belly is obviously the main currency used in Blox fruits, and this is definitely what you want to get your hands on. So one really good way to farm it is using the chest farming method from before, but another pretty obvious way to use it is from killing NPCs. Every time you kill an NPC, they give you a specific amount of belly, depending on the level of the NPC. For example, if I kill an NPC in Upper Sky Island compared to the NPC on the starter island, you can see a huge difference. And this one is for the people with a bunch of spare Robux to spend. If you're looking to level up and get out of the first sea, the game passes that you definitely want to spend your money on is double mastery, double money, and double XP. So all of these are really self-explanatory. Double mastery gives you double mastery, double money gives you double money from everything you kill and collect, and double XP doubles the amount of XP you get from quests and killing NPCs, making it twice as fast to get to max level. There are other game passes to spend your money on, but those aren't really as important as these ones. I'm going to be showing you guys the 11 essential leveling up tips for Blox fruits, including a pretty easy way to get 3 permanent Buddha fruits. So let's go to the first trick. So starting off, we got which fruit you should use to grind. Most of you watching are in the first sea, so I'm going to recommend the light, ice, or magma fruit. All of these fruits are good in their own ways. The light and ice fruit have their own sword, so you don't need to upgrade your sword to be able to do passive damage with your fruit. And the magma fruit overall is also a pretty good fruit for grinding because it does some extra damage. And what I mean by this is after you use most of your magma abilities, you'll notice that the magma stays behind for a while. When enemies step over this magma, it does a bunch of extra damage. As far as these fruits go, they're just starter fruits that most people can get their hands on, but once you get into higher seas, there are some better fruit choices. Next up is something that most of you probably already know. So if you come to this cave on the Winter Island, you find the abilities teacher, and from this guy, the most important ability that you want to buy is Enchantment. And you need Enchantment because once you start fighting higher level NPCs, some of them will have elemental type fruits and you won't be able to hit them unless you have Enchantment. Enchantment also does a bunch of extra damage when you have it turned on, which is really good in my opinion. And you can also buy these other abilities like Flash Step and Sky Jump, but Enchantment is probably the most important one for just grinding. Another important thing to know in this game is know exactly which fruits are good for grinding and which fruits are good for PvP. For example, if you take a fruit like the magma, it's really good for grinding, but the dough fruit isn't as good as grinding as the magma is, but those abilities are more suited for player versus player fights. And since you can only have one fruit equipped in this game, I recommend to all of you watching that you should probably get a grinding fruit. And maybe once you're completed the game and you're max level, then you can go for a nice PvP fruit. I mean, many of you know that there are a bunch of good game passes in the game, like the Fruit Notifier and the Dark Blade, but in my opinion, these are not that good for grinding. The only 2 game passes that you'll need is the Double Mastery and the Double Money. Having Double Mastery could let you level up a fruit, combat style, or sword much faster than you would normally. And the reason you should also buy double money is because having this game pass will let you buy many things in this game. So once you get enough money or get a high enough level to unlock the second sea, you should be able to buy the Buddha fruit. Just wait for it to come to the Blox fruit dealer, and I recommend that this is the one fruit that you should keep your eye on and buy it as soon as it's available because it is the best fruit in the game for grinding. Once you use the Z ability that it has, Transform, it makes your character 800% bigger. And once you get to a much higher level, you can awaken the Buddha, which makes it even better, but we'll get to that later. If you would like to have a permanent Buddha fruit so you can switch it out when you're farming, I'm going to be giving away 3 permanent Buddha fruits. To enter the giveaway, enter your name in the description, like, and subscribe. And once this video hits 1,000 likes, I'll be giving it away in the next video. This one is something that most of you watching already know. I'm talking about codes, and codes are a really good way to make your XP farming 10 times easier. There are a lot of codes codes, you can just search them up. I'll even link a website in the description. And most of the codes in this game give you double experience for a limited amount of time. And I'm sure you all know that double experience makes it so much faster to level up. And if you combine all of these codes, you should have at least 5 hours of double XP. And this is enough to finish a lot of islands. This next trick is something that I wish somebody told me when I was still in the first sea. So when you're in a boss quest and after you kill it, it takes 20 minutes for the boss to respawn. And a much faster way to kill that boss again instead of just waiting 20 minutes is to server hop. And what is server hopping, you might be asking? So you click this thing and you just join a new server, and there's a pretty good chance that the same boss should be right there. This makes it much faster to grind XP because the boss quest from an NPC gives you way more than the other quests. And if you want to guarantee that when you're server hopping you don't join the same server again, you just have to block someone from your game before you do it. And also because nobody wants to pay 50 Robux to just respawn a boss. Another thing is to remember to always use the correct fighting style, because there's a huge difference between the default fighting style and water kung fu. After buying your enchantment, the only thing that you want to save up for is water kung fu. Water kung fu is probably the best fighting style for the whole of the first sea. And since you can later upgrade this to Sharkman Karate, it just makes it all the more worth it. Sharkman Karate and water kung fu are the best fighting styles for grinding in this game. And the reason for this being is that they don't have a delay between their third attack. And also combined with the Buddha fruit, it just makes it so much easier to grind out enemies. Going back to the Buddha from before, as soon as you get into the second sea, first thing that you're going to do is awaken your Buddha. And the good thing about this is that you only have to awaken your first ability, the rest are pretty useless. And once you awaken your Buddha, the range at which you can hit people increases by a good amount. And also the damage you take while in the transformed Buddha form reduces from 40% to 50%. It makes it the best devil fruit awakened version for grinding in the whole game. Unless they make a new update and add some overpowered fruit. And now we're gonna get into the most important tip of this whole video. Stats. Knowing how to upgrade your stats can make a significant difference to how fast you level up. And so if you're in the first sea, what you probably want to upgrade is your melee, defense, and devil fruit, all equally. But remember, this is only if you have the light, ice, or magma fruit. If you're taking a different approach to grinding, like with the Buddha fruit and a combat style, what you want to do, put around 80% of your stat points into your melee and the rest of it into your defense. And one thing that you most definitely do not want to do is split evenly between all 5 stats. And this is because the gun is utter trash. Using this trick, you have no way of losing a PvP fight. And this fighting style is the most overpowered one in this game. This is a Blox Fruits PvP guide from noob to pro. So starting off, I'm going to talk about the fighting style. And if you're a bit new to the game, then the fighting style you probably want to go for is Water Kung Fu. The reason for this being that it is the best fighting style for PvP in the first sea. You can also upgrade it to Sharkman Karate later, which is also a really good combat style. If you're a bit higher in level, then the fighting style you're probably looking for is God Human. God Human is a fighting style that you get after upgrading Superhuman. And the way you get the Superhuman fighting style is you need to have a 300 mastery on Dark Step, Water Kung Fu, and Electric. And these things are really difficult to get. So if you're really serious about getting the best fighting style, then it's going to take a lot of grinding. And that's the main drawback about this. It's very expensive and very time consuming. If you want to go for something that's not really the best, but more like the second best, you're probably looking for Death Step. You get Death Step by getting a 450 mastery on Dark Step, and then you can just upgrade it from the NPC. And the reason this is better is obviously because it's much cheaper and it takes way less time to do, especially if you have double mastery. And at the end of the day, fighting style is more so preference. In my opinion, I just think that God Human and Superhuman are probably the best in the game. So let's move on to fruits. So for fruits, what you want to buy if you're in the first sea is probably the light or ice fruit. And the reason for this is that the light and ice fruit both have a passive sword ability. And basically with this, you can only upgrade your fruit and you basically get a free sword with it. So you can spend all your stat points on just your fruit. And obviously the other abilities are also really good, especially the light. You can travel really fast. And with the ice, it just has some really good like stun abilities and can even freeze your opponent. But once you get a bit more advanced into the game, the fruits that you probably want to look for are the dough or leopard fruit. And this discussion is really controversial, but in my opinion, the dough fruit is so much better than the leopard fruit. The leopard fruit is a beast fruit and it has some really cool abilities. But when the dough fruit is awakened, man, it just looks so much cooler and the sound effects for the abilities are a lot better. And even when using it in PvP, the dough has a lot of stun abilities, while the leopard fruit just more so focuses on just pure damage. But at the end of the day, both fruits are just really good fruits, and you probably want to choose one of those if you want to go for a PvP match against your friend. And now let's get into swords. Okay, so for swords, I'm pretty sure it's every other island you go to, it should have a sword seller, and from there you just want to buy the most expensive sword. But once you get to a higher level, the swords that you probably want to look for are the Dark Blade and the Cursed Dual Katana. In my opinion, the Dark Blade is really good for PvP because it has this one attack that just locks your opponent and doesn't let them move, and they just take a buttload of damage. And the Dual Katana is also pretty good. It has some solid damage and a bunch of really good abilities for PvP. Like the others, at the end of the day, you can choose which sword you want to use, whichever one you like more or you think is cooler. But for me, it's definitely the Dark Blade. But the best sword in the game for PvP is definitely the Saber V2. So you get the first Saber from killing the jungle boss underneath the Blox Fruit Dealer's cousin. And later on, as you progress, you can upgrade it to V2, and this makes the sword the best sword for PvP in the whole game. Keep in mind that this is only the best sword for PvP and is not the best sword for grinding. But yeah, if you want to keep dueling your friends and other enemies, this is the sword you want to keep your eye on. So for stats, overall, what you mostly want to upgrade is your defense. Defense is a really important stat for PvP because it basically just lets you take less damage. And the other thing that you want to focus on is your sword or your devil fruit. It depends on what type of fighting style you're looking for. If you have a really powerful devil fruit, then you probably want to focus on your devil fruit. But if you have a really powerful sword, then you probably want to focus on that. For those of you watching that are max level and you can completely max out 3 stats, the ones I recommend that you guys do is your melee, defense, and devil fruit or sword. Depends on what you like. Or you could also put less points into your melee and maybe split between your sword and your devil fruit, but that's not really a good idea. It's better to just completely focus on 3 of them. And what you definitely do not want to do is upgrade all of your stats evenly, because it's one of the worst ways to PvP, because who uses a gun? And also upgrading all of your stats at the same time reduces the damage of all of your abilities. It's better to completely just max out 3 of them. So now let's get into Haki. Haki is one of the most important things you gotta have if you want to be good at PvP. It lets you do things like hit people with elemental devil fruits, and observation Haki lets you dodge attacks. So the first thing you want to do is buy every single ability from the ability teacher in the cave on the ice island, and the reason for this is every single one of these abilities gives you a really good advantage in PvP fights. Flash Zip lets you teleport towards or away from enemies, or literally lets you hit people if they have an elemental devil fruit, and sky jump just gives you really good movement for PvP fights. Another important thing is cosmetics, and cosmetics are things you can get from killing various bosses scattered all over the map. But the best cosmetic to have in the game is a dark cloak. The dark coat is a mythical accessory, and it only has a 2% chance of dropping after you defeat the Darkbeard boss. Now I'm going to discuss some really important just PvP mechanics you'll need in general. Most important thing is utilize the Q dash function and just make yourself extremely unpredictable. If you do this, the enemy will have a really hard time hitting projectile shots. Another thing you want to really focus on is combos. So what I mean by combos is you just completely spamming all your abilities and knowing the correct time to do them. You don't want to have someone escape from one ability before you use another. Just make sure you spam it all at the exact same time, or as fast as you can. And if you combine this with unpredictability, it gives your opponent a really hard time in the fight. I'm gonna be showing you guys the 10 best grinding fruits in all of Blox Fruits. These fruits will literally help you reach max level in less than a week. So in number 10, we actually have a quite interesting fruit. It's the chop fruit. And some of you may be wondering, why is the chop fruit even on this list? And the reason for that is, if you have the chop fruit equipped, you cannot get hit with enemies that use swords. And this is a fruit that you should probably only use when grinding those type of enemies. Otherwise, it's kind of useless. I mean, it is one of the worst fruits in the game after all. And in number 9, we have the flame fruit. And the flame fruit is kind of a hybrid fruit, because this is a fruit that's good for PvP and for grinding. But unfortunately, it's not the best fruit in both of those categories. But it's also an elemental type fruit, which makes it really hard for enemies to hit you. Unless, of course, they have a Haki. And it also has this flying ability that comes in handy when you're trying to go up to places, to Sky Islands or some places in the 3rd sea. But overall, not the best fruit if you want to grind. And in number 8, we have the dark fruit. The dark fruit is a pretty rare fruit to get. But the main reason that it's on this list as a grinding fruit is because of its potential against bosses. Since all boss fights in this game for quests are 1v1s, the dark fruit is really good at these. Most of the abilities from the dark fruit just stun the user, and that's why it's really good against just one person. And obviously, it's also an elemental type fruit, which is just an added bonus. But keep in mind that this is basically only good for boss quests, so it's probably not the best choice. And now we're getting on to the good fruits. In number 7, we have the smoke fruit. The smoke fruit is the cheapest elemental type fruit in the game, and if you're in the first seat, this is definitely a fruit that you want to keep your eye on. And the reason for this is that its fly ability is unlimited, and it does damage while you fly. So you can just fly around above your enemies, and they won't be able to hit you, unless, of course, they have ranged attacks. But keep in mind that this fruit is also elemental, so sometimes they won't be able to hit you. And its other abilities are also pretty good for grinding, but the main thing that you want from this fruit is its flying ability. You guys are gonna hate me for this, but in number 6, we have the dough fruit. Everyone in the game knows that the dough fruit is literally one of the best fruits in the whole game, but it isn't really a best choice for grinding. The dough fruit's abilities are more suited to PvP, especially the awakened version, but for doing quests, it's just not really the best choice, and the fruits above this are just so much better in so many ways. And in 5th place, we got the venom fruit. The venom fruit is a grinding fruit that almost every single one of the venom fruit's abilities are targeted towards grinding, especially the toxic fog ability. The toxic fog just creates a bunch of clouds in a specific area and just pours out a lot of damage onto the enemies. And did I mention the transformation for this fruit is freaking insane? And the abilities you can dish out while in this transform mode just make it all the more worth it. And now for 3rd and 4th place, I'm gonna be counting both of these as the same because it's the light and ice fruit. And the reason these two fruits are up here on this list is because of their passive ability. The light fruit gives you a free sword, and the ice fruit gives you this ice trident. This lets you to dish out damage to your enemies while waiting for your abilities to recharge. And another really good thing about this is that when you're upgrading stats, you don't even need to touch your sword stats because you literally have a free sword, and you just have to upgrade your Blox fruit points. And all the abilities that these fruits have are also really good for grinding. Well, most of them at least. The life flight is kind of useless for grinding, but it does let you get to the next island really fast. And did I mention both of these fruits in their awakened form are just really insane and increases the ability damage by a lot, which makes it even better for grinding. And in 2nd place, we got the magma fruit. And this is a fruit that you mostly want to use in the 1st and 2nd seed. And this fruit also does a huge amount of passive damage. And what I mean by this is once you use a magma attack, you can see these little parts of magma spill off and they just stay there for a bit. And if the enemy walks into them, it does a lot of damage. And believe it or not, this fruit has the highest damage out of every fruit in the game if you add the puddle damage. And these are just the base abilities of this fruit. Once you awaken your magma fruit, it lets you do some really OP things like walking into water. And it also upgrades your abilities and makes them so much better and 10 times cooler. But this fruit is only the 2nd best fruit. And what's in number 1 is so much better. I know most of you already expected this, but in number 1, we got the Buddha fruit. And the Buddha fruit is known by everybody in the community as the literal best fruit in the game for grinding. And the reason for this being is when you transform into a Buddha, the range that you can hit your enemies increases by a huge amount. This lets you hit your enemies without them even being able to touch you. And if you combine this fruit with a combat style or a sword, it just makes it super overpowered. And if you're looking to get to max level, this is definitely the fruit that you want to keep your eye on. But one downside is that this fruit is extremely rare to come by. And once you get the awakened version of your Buddha, it increases the size and gives your Buddha a passive ability, making it the best fruit for grinding in the whole game.